everybody. Welcome to another Awaken Your Health. I am Julie Murphy, and I am the money chick. So why am I talking about health? Well, it's because we either work things out or we act it out, and we do it through our money, through our health, or through our relationships. So I'm not the health expert, but I brought Cyndal on today. Welcome to sit here and talk about solutions to emotional eating because she's written a book about it, and that's her field, and that's what she does. So I also want to remind you guys to be sure to subscribe and like and hit that notification bell. So every time we're trying to help you improve your health and your wealth and your relationships, you know when we're doing this. So Cyndal, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here. And I love what you do and the message that you share. And you're doing great work. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Absolutely. So tell me, having written and just finished my third book, which will be coming out soon, super excited, The 4 Spiritual Laws of Money. It's a big deal writing a book.
It is. It
right?
is. It was a
So
journey.
tell us about your journey, because there's a lot of people that think of writing books and being experts in their field, and they don't do it, but you've done it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it fell into my lap. I wasn't really ever planning on writing a book. I have like dyslexia and I have some of these like limiting beliefs I tell myself, but it fell into my lap. I've been following my publisher on Facebook for a couple of years before she was my publisher. And she made this post saying, like, do you want to take a free workshop to learn how to publish a book? I'm like, I guess it's free, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so then I was like, go ahead, sign me up. So she sends me this link and then I start to fill it out. And then it was like asking like kind of intrusive questions. I'm like, I thought I was just signing up for a workshop. What is going on?
It got to your core.
Right. And I almost stopped. But then I heard this voice, keep going. I'm like, okay, I've learned not to disregard that voice. So I went ahead and I submitted it. I got an email back from my publisher like within the hours, and congratulations, you made it. It was a close call. And then the rest is history.
And can I say something to that?
Yes.
Because what I find with so many women is that we don't listen to that knowing. We don't listen to that nudge, that little voice, because we have been so trained and so educated in our heads that we think that our minds are actually creating a reality. And it's really that knowing in our heart space. That's the true power of our divine feminine power is. It's listening to that knowing and trusting it to take those steps, even if you don't know all the logical steps as to why you're doing something. And that's part of our magic as women. And men have this as well. It's just, women have ignored it. Men go exactly right after their knowing. Like they don't even bat an eye. They just go. And we're just like, well, there's this and there's that and there's this and there's that. But that's great that you did that, because now you've raised the grid for many other people to find solutions to their emotional eating. And that's huge.
Definitely, because we all emotionally eat to a point. We eat when we're sad, we eat when we're angry, we eat when we celebrate. And if you really think about it, we are conditioned to be this way when we're young kids. Like you have like your first heartbreak. Maybe one of your guardians is like, let's go get some chocolate ice cream. Ice cream fixes all the things.
That's the reward is food. I'm like, I'm so conscious to not have my kids have rewards for food. Doesn't always work because they always want ice cream after their baseball games. But but it's true. Like, well, what other rewards? Like, we are conditioned to that, right?
We are, yeah. And I think another thing too is that, a lot of us don't have the emotional wisdom. And so when the people that we love and the people that we care about, and when they're hurting or they're in pain or discomfort, we just want to help them. And so let's go get food because that's the easiest solution, right?
That's true, right? And it's almost like our reactivity to whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that emotional wisdom? You say that that's one of the things that you really touch on upon a time. Can you dive deeper into that for people?
Yeah, definitely. So a really big part of my practice is emotional wisdom, because when we can understand what our feelings are trying to motivate us to do, we can find a proper, satisfying response.
Yep.
And so oftentimes we fall into this feel bad distract cycle because
Right.
our brain is going to do everything that it can to move us away from discomfort and towards pleasure.
Yeah, it's those grooves that are in our brain. It's like those patterns are brutal.
Right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, there's tons of modalities that we can use to begin to rewire our brain. Neuroplasticity, I'm a huge geek about that too, right?
I'm
And
like, I don't even know if I can spell that word. What?
that's why we have the internet. Like, that's why we have spell check and Google and stuff. They'll spell it for us.
Absolutely.
Neuroplasticity is absolutely amazing, and it's shown us that we don't have to be wired this way, and it's a practice. It's not
Right.
easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
True.
So what happens is that we feel bad. So maybe we might feel a little anger, maybe we might be feeling stress or
Sure.
guilt, and we don't know maybe what we're feeling. Maybe we don't know why we're feeling that way. We just know that we don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And
again,
it all happens so fast,
huh?
right? And it all happens so fast.
Yes, yes.
It's like, whoop, and then all of a sudden you're like, what did I just do? How many times have we like sat there and like, give me a thing of Dean's French onion dip and reduced fat ruffles because I'm bullshitting myself, right? And like half the bag's gone, and I'm like, oh God, what did I just do?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's easy. It's
Yeah,
really, really easy to
it
do
is.
that, especially when we are feeling a lot of uncomfortable feelings.
Right.
And so some of the things that I teach in my book help create space between us and our actions and us and the
Mm.
emotional eating. But what's really important though to understand about the feel bad distract cycle. So
Yep.
we feel bad, then our brain just wants us to feel better. And so we go distract. So the eaters are going to eat, the smokers are going to smoke, the drinkers are going to drink, and people are going to spend money. They're going to,
Right.
overwork whatever it may
Right.
be. And then their brain is going to release the dopamine. They're going to feel good for like a hot minute.
Right.
And then they start feeling bad again because that was not a satisfying action.
And this is where I want to show people the correlation between our health and our wealth. It's because, so I talk about spending hangovers. I'm like, okay, let's not create a spending hangover this holiday season. And it's because of the fact that people get that credit card bill in January and they're like, oh my God, I should never have bought this for so and so. It's a whole different ball game when you go to the store with cash. I always have people open up an online savings account that had, like, we name it whatever your intention is for the money. So, for example, if you celebrate Christmas, so it's a Christmas fund. And decide how much you want to spend. They used to do Christmas clubs back in the day. You might be too young to remember
Yeah,
Christmas.
I don't know that, but that's really cool though.
But it used to be that your employer would literally take money out of your paycheck and put it in a savings account automatically. And then that was your money you spent for Christmas.
Wow.
And so employers don't do that today, but you can use some of these online savings accounts. There's tons of them out there that you can actually keep it separate from everything else. And I call it my Christmas fund. And I have $250 a month go into a Christmas fund. You know how much fun it is to go shopping with that cash to buy people presents? You won't spend as much. That's what happens, because when you have to pass over $100 bills for things, you're kind of going, I worked really hard for that money. Do I really want to do that? But we have these spending hangovers, and it's the same thing like you talked about with our eating. When you slide that credit card, and then when the bill comes in the mail and you're like, oh, like you had short-term high, they laugh and they call it retail therapy. And I'm like going, I don't know how good that is, because that's just compounding problems. And it's no different than when we distract ourselves with food or alcohol, and spending is one of those things.
It is. The brain the brain releases dopamine like when we
Yep.
are buying things,
Yep.
and so that is definitely a distraction.
Right.
And I think that is a really easy distraction. I've actually worked with quite a few clients that have issues with spending too much money, and that is their distraction. So
Right.
it's completely involved in what we're talking about 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really about our emotional infrastructure and how we're so I interrupted you. So
No,
keep
you're good.
going down the path that you were talking about creating space in our emotions and detach our emotions and our actions.
Right.
How do you
Yes.
suggest somebody does that?
Hmm.
How do you suggest that somebody does that? What are some tools maybe that people can do to do those things?
So what I'm going to do first is that I would like to share the rest of the feel bad
Please.
distracts
Oh yeah,
really
yeah.
really
I'll,
quick. Yep.
Whoop.
And
Yep.
then then I'll go into some of that. So we feel bad and we distract, and then
Right.
so we feel bad, we distract, and then we feel bad again. But sometimes even worse, especially
Um,
if we are, or especially if we're eating,
right.
emotionally eating, because oftentimes there is a hidden ingredient in that food called guilty residue, right? So that
Mm,
we feel bad for eating the ice cream, for eating the Lay's chips
right.
or whatever it may be. And so then what begins to happen is that feel bad feeling ends up getting compounded with frustration because
Mm,
what I'm doing is not working and you're going around and around and around in this rut. Then eventually that frustration turns into depression. And when I say depression, I don't mean the chemically imbalanced depression. I
right.
mean a normal natural depression that we all experience at some point in our life. And when we get to the point of depression, that means that we need to stop what we're doing, take a deep rest.
Yeah.
And now it's time to go back and to reevaluate the situation and see how can we do it differently. So that is the feel bad distract cycle. Now, how we can begin to break free out of this rut, I think it's really two things. First thing again is emotional wisdom, knowing what our feelings are trying to motivate us to do, because all feelings are good, even
Mm,
bad feelings such as anger and sadness and guilt, because all those feelings are just trying to motivate you to take action.
ah,
Right? They're trying to have you take action to meet a want, need, or a desire.
that's true.
Yeah, and sometimes taking those actions, they aren't easy. Sometimes that's a little bit of uncomfortable too. So for an example, like anger is the voice that says, I'm perceiving something unfair is happening to me or someone that I love.
Right.
So anger is about unfairness.
Mm,
And so anger is there to motivate us to make the situation fair, to try to make it more fair, or to forgive,
yeah. Yeah.
right? And so if we are angry at our partner, for an example,
Hmm.
and we don't go deal with it, and we go emotionally instead, that problem is still there.
Right.
And so the way to get over that is by having that difficult conversation with your partner,
Hmm.
because that's going to be a true satisfying response
Right.
for that emotion. So no amount of distractions are ever going to be a satisfying result.
Right.
So, understanding what our feelings are trying to motivate us to do, I think, is step one.
Hmm.
Step two is creating joy in our life.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I ask people, like, what sparks you up? What brings you joy in your life? And I don't know, nothing.
I will tell you, I am witnessing this all over the place because I feel like people have ignored their hearts and what makes them happy for generations.
Yeah.
And they believe, especially because I'm going to go back to like the money world, is an I categorize people as the poor, the debtors, dreamers, the accumulators, and rich but empty, and then embodying real wealth. And
Ooh,
anyone who is not rich but empty thinks that once they're rich, then they're going to be happy. And
yeah.
you don't meet anybody who's made a ton of money or has a ton of money that will tell you that that's what creates your happiness. But everyone who doesn't have enough money to not have to go to work, that's kind of how I categorize it. They always think that once they get there, then it'll be this like, oh, and it's like, no, no, no. We have to create happiness all along the way in every moment, in every stage of life, because all you have is the present moment.
That's why they call it a present, right? Because
Well
it is a
said.
present, right?
And so this piece of joy is truly missing in many people's worlds.
Yeah.
And I think so often it's because we think it's something outside of ourselves is better than what's actually in the inside. And that joy and contentment, I would say that also comes, you become happy or joyful because you're content with reality.
Yeah.
And if you can't find that place of peace inside of you, well, then it's going to come out in all these distractions you were talking about.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
completely agree with you 100%. And that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's step number 3?
So, creating joy. So those are going to be like the two big things, because again, like something that I do is that I ask all of my people, what brings you joy? And like what you're kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, that we are distracting ourselves, and also we are so, especially as women,
Mm-hmm.
we are constantly giving ourselves, giving to our family, to our kids, to our work, whatever it is. And then
Right.
at the end of the day, our emotional cup is so dry. And no wonder that most people that emotionally eat happens in the evening, right? And it's like
Mm,
almost like a little reward. I've
right.
busted my ass and I've worked really hard all day. I deserve the slice of cheesecake. And so,
Yeah, it's like
as
our reward for good behavior.
right. And what's really funny, I was on a podcast just the other day, and what she said, she was like, treating ourselves like we're not a dog. We don't need to treat ourselves. I'm like, you're right. Which makes total sense,
Right. Totally.
And we just we have a lot of the toxic relationships with food because of diet culture and now social media added on top of that. And so there's just a lot of obstacles in our way with
That's true.
overcoming but talking about joy, really diving deep into your heart. And, like, even
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, like, what is it that I enjoyed doing when I was a child? Did you
Mm-hmm.
enjoy singing? Was it art? Was it dancing? Was it going on hikes? Whatever it is. And that's usually a good place to start, is what is it
Yep.
that you really love to do when you were a child, you can spend hours doing?
Yep.
And that's usually a good place to start if you are lost and where to find joy
Right.
currently presently in your life. I also suggest, when finding something that sparks joy, having a couple options that are going to be lower energy too.
Sure.
So, for an example, like if you had like a really or kind of a rough emotionally day, right? And then it's the end of the day, you're not hungry, you don't want to emotionally eat, but maybe dancing is a little bit too much work for you right now, right? So motion that is going to be lower energy, such as
Mhm.
maybe like coloring,
Right.
crocheting, drinking some tea, something like that. So I think that's a really, really big step. There's those two things: emotional wisdom
Mhm.
and creating joy in our lives.
Yeah, and I always we make it way more difficult than it needs to be. I've often found.
Yeah.
I tell people, like, they'll ask me financial advice. I'm like, well, which one makes you giggle more? And they're like, excuse me? And I'm
I
like,
love that.
which one makes you giggle more? And they're like, especially the guys. The guys are like, giggle? Like, what gives you the shit ass grin on your face? Because guys get the shit ass grin on their face and the women giggle, right? And
Right.
and everybody knows which one makes them giggle more.
Yeah.
And that is similar to you saying, like, bring out that child in you,
Yeah.
because that child wants to be playful. That child wants to be on the next adventure and explore and have, new experiences. And we've lost that mystery in our society on so many levels, which is why I believe that we're distracting ourselves with all these other things: food, alcohol, smoking, spending, because we're missing the joy and being like a kid. Like, why is it that we can't have fun? People say, well, I can't. I noticed this after my divorce. It was really funny. So I was single again. So then I was like, oh, well, mom frumpy clothes look very different than I'm single again clothes. But why do we become moms and then like cover our bodies and stuff, as opposed to like own this. I gave birth to 4 baby bodies.
Mhm.
Like it's like scream it. You're doing the miracle of life. And it's funny, like I could tell the moms at my kids' school would like look at me, and then it was funny to watch my emotional response to that, because all of a sudden I was getting attention and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the attention. And and it was just about the fact that I was just owning where I was and who I wanted to be in the world post that. And it's funny how we get into these modes and we get stuck,
Yeah.
and it could be at any age. It could be, you could be in the mode of you can't get out of your sweatpants because you've been Zooming for a year and a half with the pandemic, right? And it's like, I don't want to go get dressed up and go out. But it could be whatever it is. And our emotions really, they've now proven, I've seen, and Dr. Joe Dispenza's work does this stuff where they can measure the megahertz on our emotions, and they're directly tied to diseases.
Yeah.
That I
Energy has
know
to go
that.
somewhere.
What's that?
The energy has to go somewhere, and if you're not getting those emotions out, and if you're
Right.
not doing something about it, and you're stuffing all those emotions in the emotional pressure cooker,
Yep.
it's just a matter of time before it starts to manifest in our body in some way or another. Definitely
So what
agree.
are some of the best ways that you've seen people get their emotions out? And sometimes you can provoke yourself to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, I know when I was having a tough time at the end of my marriage, I was getting really angry all the time. And I was like, the work that I've always understood
Mm.
anger to be deep sadness, and rage is deep anger, which is deep sadness. And so I would walk around my house going, why am I sad? Why am I sad? Because I didn't even know why I was sad, right?
Yeah.
And to this day, I realized I had created a life that I didn't want to be in anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I had a relationship that wasn't a partnership. It felt like a mother son relationship. I was taking care of everything, I was holding the bag for everything. And
Mhm.
I 100% created that. I was the second oldest of 12 children. So I knew how to take care of everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, how else do you see like people, um, you know, get those emotions out? Like, are there any patterns and stuff that you've seen that works well for people usually?
So something that I teach is what I call the 1, 2, 3. My teacher, Cal Banyan, he is authority of hypnosis. He's my hypnosis trainer.
Mhm.
Um, so Cal Banyan is the author of The Secret Language of Feelings. And
Um,
so he was a therapist for many, many years, and he was not getting the type of results that he was wanting for his clients. So
mhm.
he became a hypnotherapist. And so as he was working with his hypnosis clients, he began to notice emotional trends. So then he was asking all of the people that work with people and feelings. He
Yep,
was asking doctors and nurses and teachers and preachers and all these different people that work with people and their feelings. And he
yep,
would ask them, what are feelings for? Some of these people had no response, had no
right?
answer.
Yeah.
And other people, they had answers, but it was not very consistent.
Mm,
And so Cal Banyan, I also have the belief system too that again, all feelings are good because they're there to motivate us to take action.
right.
Now, in the steps is called the 1, 2, 3. So step one is to identify, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Step one is, what am I feeling?
Mm,
Step two is, why am I feeling this way? And you want to be as detailed as possible in the second step,
right.
because as you are writing out the second step, you might find keywords that might change what the original feeling was.
Mm,
So you might think I'm
yeah.
feeling bored, but then as you go write out the second part, like, oh, I'm actually feeling stressed. I'll give an example here in a second.
Yep.
And then the third step is doing a reality check and
Mm,
asking ourselves questions like, what evidence do I have to support this? Is there a different way that I can look at this? Whose voice is telling me this? That's usually a big one with
mm,
inadequacy. Is this your mom's voice? Is this your father's voice? Is this ex-husband's voice that's telling you that you're not good enough, whatever it is? And then when you start collecting all this data and all
Yeah.
this evidence, you're able to then decide, is this erroneous or
Mm,
is this real?
right.
If the feeling is real, then if it's anger, we're going to go try to make the situation more fair, or we're going to forgive. If
Right.
it's stress, we're going to try to delegate, take things off of our plate, or do things less often or not at all if possible.
Right.
And all the different feelings. But then if we know that the feeling is erroneous, because it often happens with anxiety, also with
Mm.
emotionally eating as well too, then that means that really what your brain wants is just to feel better. It
Right.
doesn't want the food. It doesn't want the
But the
alcohol.
food never makes you feel better.
No, it has a guilty residue in it, right?
Mhm. I like that
And so
word, guilty residue. It's so true.
it is.
Yeah.
And then
Like
really,
gluten stuck in your system.
really, right?
Right,
It's
exactly.
true. And so then what the brain really wants is just to feel better. And so then at that point, it's like, okay, I know these feelings are erroneous. So now it's time to go generate good feelings in the brain and the body.
Right.
So again, that's going back to a healthy distraction. So
Mhm.
maybe for some people, they're going to sing, they're going to dance. One of my emotionally eating clients I was working with last year, actually, she's amazing. So something that I do with my clients is that I co-create healthy distractors with them.
Oh,
So
cool.
they know when they're not hungry that they're going to go do something that's going to generate good feelings in the brain and the body. And so I'm going to call her Hazel. And so her and we were going over all these different suggestions. She's like, no, 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 no. I'm like, "Why?" For your homework this week, I want you to find 3 things that you can do instead of emotionally eat. And she came back that next week with a brand new weighted hula hoop.
That's awesome. Playful. That's the best part.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, that's one of the things I was asking her, going back to our conversation a few minutes ago. I was like, what did you used to do when you were a child? That really lit you up.
Right.
And so for her, she loved hula hooping and jump roping. And so now what she would do is that she still goes into the kitchen and she just does her hula hoop for a couple of minutes. And then she's good. And she's been good, for over a year. So going back to creating joy.
Yeah.
Creating
It's
joy.
kinda like when I have a Peloton treadmill,
Yeah.
and there are days you don't wanna get on it, right? And you're like, "But health-wise, I need to get on it." And there's this one instructor there who has an Irish brogue, and he is funny as hell. And so every time I'm struggling, like, to get on the treadmill, I'm going, "Well, I'm gonna do class with him today," because he makes me laugh every time.
Oh, good.
And he's just got that demeanor that, makes me laugh. So I'm like, it got me on it. It got me moving in a day that I was having a tough time doing that. So
Definitely.
kudos. That's amazing. Like, and we don't think of these things. And I wrote down here when you were, talking about this, it's about retraining our brains,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
about, we have all these distractors that are negative, like they're creating negative effects in our worlds, right? But you can't stop the emotions. I had somebody say to me one time, well, you just have to stop feeling your emotions and then they go away. I go, last time I checked, I'm human and I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
And the emotions generated from chemicals that our brain releases based on perceptions, based
Right.
on our subconscious mind. Yeah, it really
And
doesn't work that way.
And
It's
even
lots
as
of it's
much as we try to act like it's not there, like I always talk about how I bring humanity back into finance, because
mm,
if you talk to somebody who's very left brain logical and a finance expert, they roll over the fact that you're a human being and that you have these emotions that have to do with your money. And I'm like going, how did we leave the human out of the equation? I'm really confused how that even happens. But my entire industry is built on that.
yeah,
It's like, how do I optimize my return? I'm like, really? Like, that's not at the end of the day what people really want.
I
And
agree.
yes, they want good rates returns. They want to optimize and make as much money as they can. I don't know anyone that says I want to make less, but we've left our hearts on the sidelines
Yeah.
because we've been following our left brain logical. and so it's this retraining of the brain when you go to the giggle or you go to the hula hooping or, because those grooves in our brain, they're strong, but they can be changed. They can
Mhm.
shift.
Mhm.
And that's what's amazing that most people don't realize,
Yeah.
that your patterning is not stuck. It can absolutely shift.
Definitely, definitely, and it takes time. One of my business coaches, he said something a couple weeks ago that really stuck with me. Practice does not make perfect. Practice
Mhm.
makes permanent,
Oh, I like that.
right? Because perfection is an illusion,
Right.
anyways. There's no such thing as perfect. I like to embrace the wabi-sabi. Um, are you familiar with what wabi-sabi is?
I am not. Can you explain it?
Yeah, yeah, it's a Japanese aesthetic. And
Mhm.
so they will purposely like buy like a wood table with a knot on it just because it's not perfect. Nature
Oh,
is wabi-sabi as
yeah,
well, right? It's there's
totally.
nothing in nature that's perfect, but nature is beautiful.
Mm,
And we are a part of nature, you know?
absolutely.
And so when we try to reach for this illusion of perfection, we're trying to separate ourselves from nature when really it's about embracing our own little wabi sabi,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. When I do my work, so the section of finance that I'm in is more like life. It falls under what they call life planning.
Hmm.
And so that's why I talk about what's going on in your work life and your personal life and your family life. And I always sit there and I say, you know, people will come in and go, well, I need more work life balance. I go, again, you're striving for something that's never going to happen. You are never going to have balance because you need to just have it all harmonize,
Yeah.
right? Like that's, in my opinion, that's a more appropriate word. No different than I hate the word budget. I cannot stand it because it takes your power away from you. It tells
Mhm.
you you can't have something. You're bad. Get on a budget. And I'm sitting here going, no, you know what? How do you want your cash to flow?
Yeah.
Like it shifts it from being a victim of something to a place of empowerment and abundance. It's not
Yeah. It makes it more of a
scarcity, it's abundance.
choice.
Right. And it's the same thing. Like, don't strive for balance, strive for harmony because there are sometimes your work life is going to be more dominant. Last year, everybody's health was more dominant than every aspect of our lives, right?
Right.
And so I get that we have to just understand that that is life. Life is not absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Life is it's about creating that permanence.
Totally.
That's what the practice does. I love that. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And as you were talking about like the budget, like it made me think of diets, right?
Mm,
That we put ourselves into like this very specific diet box, being like, I have to stick to this diet for whatever reason. And then we are restricting ourselves. And then when
right.
we restrict ourselves, that only increases the need or the want for whatever foods that we're restricting ourselves from.
Right.
So there was this client that I was working with. I think it was last year, maybe the year before that. We were working on emotional eating.
Mm.
She would binge almost every single night, and so she was doing really well. And then she came into my office and she sat down and she looked kind of sad and depressed. And I'm like, "What's going on? What worked for you this week?" She's nothing worked for me this week. Absolutely nothing.
Aw.
I'm like, "Tell me about it. Tell me about it."
Bring
Give me all the deets,
it
you know?
on.
And so what she was saying is that her boyfriend or her husband brought home cupcakes, 6 cupcakes.
Mm.
And so she's sitting on the couch. I don't want to eat those cupcakes. Those cupcakes are not part of my diet. No, no, no. I don't want those cupcakes. No, no, no. Then eventually she broke and she had 2 cupcakes. And so I'm sitting there, I'm kind of smiling. This is good information. This is great, and she
Right.
doesn't see it yet.
Yeah.
And so at first I asked her, so what, I'm just going to call her Sally. Like, what would Sally have done like a
Mm.
month ago?
Right.
She's like, well, Sally would have probably ate all six cupcakes. I'm like, okay, so that's a win. 2 instead of 6, right?
All
And
in how we perceive it.
definitely, definitely. And so then
You're
I also,
directly correct.
right? And then I also asked her too, because I was telling her, like, what you focus on grows, and our subconscious mind does not understand negatives in a sentence. So I did this real quick example with her. Whatever you do, and I mean whatever you do not think about a purple elephant. What are you
All
thinking
you
about?
can do
A
is think
purple
about a
elephant,
purple.
right? And so when you are sitting there telling yourself, like, no, I don't want those cupcakes. No, I don't want those cupcakes. You're still thinking about the cupcakes. So what you
Right.
focus on grows, right?
Correct.
But then I also asked her too, how often in your life do you tell yourself no? And she was just like, well, I tell myself no quite a bit. I'm like, okay, what happens when other people tell you no? She's like, that only makes me want to do even more. That only makes me want to do
Exactly.
it more, right? And so when we are telling ourselves, no, I can't
Mhm.
have that, or no, I shouldn't do this, there's like this little rebel part of us that creeps out.
Totally. You're a
Do it.
teenager all over again. You're going, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it in spades.
Exactly,
Watch me.
And so, one of the tricks around that is to focus on the direction that we want to go.
Mm.
So, for an example, like what we worked on with her is basically saying that, like, right now, I'm going to make healthy choices. And right now, I choose to eat foods that nourish my body. Or like, I don't need that right now. I know what it tastes like. And I'm okay. I can have it maybe tomorrow or something, And so then you're focusing on the direction you want to go, which is making the healthier food choice, instead of the direction you don't want to go, which is like, no, I don't want that. And
Well, yeah, and that's so true. I remember when I had my first food sensitivity test done, and I was told to stop having dairy, and I'm like, hell, if you're telling me I can't have mint chocolate chip ice cream. Like, I was like, what? And I did that shift that you're talking about, and it makes a huge difference. And it's like, well, because here's the other thing. You eat with other people, right? A lot of times, and you're eating with people who have similar habits as you do. And the minute you try to break that, they're like, oh, come on, you can just have one piece of pizza. And it's like, no, like I can't poop if I eat the cheese. Like, no joke. Like, it's not okay, you know? But when you're emotionally eating, it's just like, oh my God, yeah, let's do it.
yeah,
Because it's there and it's in abundance and it's low cost, right? And that's true for like even fast food.
yeah,
Like there's so many people that just hook in through the drive-through and they're emotionally triggered and whatever. And then it's like your gut just doesn't feel good. And I'm going, yeah, like my compelling reason for change is I desire that more because I don't like the way that my stomach bloats after I do that. And I could do that. And there was a long time there for a while there I was like, oh, well, I figured out I could go into a steam room at the gym and then all the inflammation would come out of my body and then I could have dairy then. But then I'd go right back up again. And
right.
it's like, it's so true. It's like, you just have to say, yeah, I don't want to have to keep doing this. Like, because literally, when you eat the stuff that's not good for your body, you're literally putting a toxin in, and you don't realize how you're literally slowly but surely killing yourself.
Yeah.
Literally. And I don't know if you've ever heard of one of the best companies out there that I've heard of to really test your microbiome. It's a company called Viome, Viome.
Hmm.
And that has been a game changer for me because they send you a lab kit and you mail it back and you follow the instructions. And they have an app that tells you, like, here's your superfoods, how your gut works best. And here's, the ones that are good, these ones minimally eat, and these ones completely avoid. And that's been a game changer. So it's like, to your point, like, even if I'm binging, like, okay, well, I'm going to binge on something that's at least then on my, at least my enjoy list, that I'm not doing the ones that are on the avoid list,
Yeah.
and here was the caveat. And then I also still like them. So I was always a potato chip eater. And because I realized I liked the crunch.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out like what's on my superfood list and crunch. So it's crazy. I have celery and jicama in my refrigerator and carrots all the time. Why?
Awesome.
Because it's the crunch. I like the crunch. And so if I'm emotionally eating, I know it sounds goofy, but I'll do any of those with some hummus, and I feel like I'm having chip and dip. And people
Exactly.
be like, you're just bullshitting yourself. I'm like, yeah, but it works and I still enjoy it.
Exactly.
And I don't have then the eating hangover afterwards.
Exactly. That guilty residue that we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
And as you were talking about that, something that came to my mind too was the self-sabotage part of
Oh,
ourselves.
yep.
So I have a different view on self-sabotage, but self-sabotage, really all they care about is the present moment. They just want to feel better in the here and now, but
Right.
they don't really care about the consequences.
Right.
Now, my view on self-sabotage is that all parts of ourselves are good. So self-sabotage is really just a protective part of us.
It
That
is.
it is that they're
I
trying to
get that.
protect us
Yep.
from feeling uncomfortable. They're trying to protect us from whatever it may be. And so sometimes when we can have this awareness that this part of us is just trying to be a friend, is just trying to help us, we can kind of like talk to that part, be like, hey, I got this. It's under control. I'm going to go do my breathing real quick. We're going to go do something else. But I think a big part is having that awareness that this part, again, is just trying to keep us safe, trying to protect us from feeling uncomfortable. And so even if we do like slip up, right? But even if we do, eat something that we don't want to eat,
Totally. Yeah. And we've
we
all done
can
it. Right.
forgive ourselves.
We've all done it.
Yeah. I mean, it's emotionally, overcoming the emotional eating, I think there is a point where you can completely get over it, but at the same time, we all emotionally eat to a point. So
Sure.
even after we kind of like master it,
Mm-hmm.
it's still easy to experience the emotional
Oh,
eating.
sure.
It's the idea is becoming aware of it and not letting it be in the driver's seat.
Right.
Well, you're like locked in the back of the trunk, you know what I mean?
It's like bring yourself along for the ride.
Exactly. You could even sit in the front seat, the driver's
Yeah,
seat.
it's
They can sit in
okay.
the
We're
back
like,
seat.
hey.
So it's a thing, but being able to when we do, I'm just going to say slip up again with our diet. Something else too that I work with a lot of people with is the all or nothing mentality.
Mm.
That like I messed up today. I had 5 extra potato chips, the entire day is just ruined. So, why not just eat whatever I want for the rest of the day?
Yep.
When really we can look at that experience as a learning opportunity, be like, ooh, approach it with curiosity and love. Be like, ooh, what happened here? Why did I overeat a little bit?
Absolutely.
Right? And
Yeah.
loving it. Be like, all right, now I know. So now I'm going to just do better next meal. So we have a new opportunity every meal. We
Right.
don't have to start tomorrow. We don't have to start Monday. The next
Well,
meal.
and I have realized my boyfriend is all about intermittent fasting,
Okay.
and I am like, I can't deprive myself because I know, and I fasted. I have not eaten. I have done it, but I have to do it in such a way that I'm not feeling like I'm depriving myself. So like if I want to have that cookie or I want to have that or whatever it is, then I do because I just find that if I delay that, whatever that is, that part of me that wants that, it creates a bigger beast. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's just about like, and I don't have a problem intermittent fasting, but I can't do it in such a way that I'm like, we have to stop that because you got too much fat on your belly. It's more about like, hey, you know what? It's just because I have a goal that I want to hit, or I just want to really honest to God, at the end of the day, I just want to feel good. I don't
Yeah.
want to feel like garbage,
Yeah.
and to me, whether, I'm a bigger framed girl. So what? You know what? I just want to feel good. That's all it is in my own skin.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's how you perceive that. Like you said, it's your mentality about it,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah.
Cyndal, how do people get a hold of you? Because you've got a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure there's people out there that need your help. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, you guys can find me on social media. Facebook is going to be Blooming Lotus Hypnosis. And then you can find me on Instagram, blooming_lotus_hypnosis. Same with TikTok as well. And then my website is going to be bloominglotushypnosis.com. I offer free consultations if that is something that anyone is interested in. And then also too, as a gift to all of your listeners, I would like to gift a free copy of my book, The Solution to Emotional Eating, to help create space between us and our actions using mindfulness. And I also teach self-hypnosis in the book too, so people are able to use self-hypnosis themselves to, again, create that space between them and their actions, so they can not have to think about food all the time, and they don't have to, so they can enjoy food again.
Well,
Yeah.
and we have to remember that everything is energy. And one of the reasons I believe that hypnosis works so well is because it gets you out of your monkey mind and it goes into more of the quantum field. And we are energy, our food is energy. And so we're tapping into that energetic field when we do hypnosis, and we kind of get out of our own way.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, definitely.
and create new patterns. So have fun and play with it, everybody, because
Let it
it
be
is
fun and
a
easy.
solution and it will go. And I put the link here for myself, awakenyourwealthbook.com. I just ask for you pay for your shipping for the book. So, and then please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and hit that notification bell, because we are going to help you on your journey to get to a life that you absolutely love. Thank you for joining us today, Cyndal.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
See you all soon. Bye.